Welcome back to Human. My name is Jess, and I attempted, or I at least had the thought that I was going to record this episode yesterday, and then I was in a horrible mood and literally got so dramatic and was like, that's it, I'm taking a break from the podcast, I'm not doing this episode, it's 3 years of Human, and I'm going to take a break and not be here anymore, and I just can't record. And it turns out I was just having a bad day. I was not even having a bad day, I was just really tired. I was feeling a little lonely. I was missing some of my peeps, and I woke up this morning and I felt better and was like, I'm going to record the episode today. I'm still feeling tired because it's the AM and it takes me so long to wake up in the morning and actually feel alert, and I don't drink caffeine. I never have, so it's not like I know what the dark side is like, but I have had these lingering thoughts here and there where I've said to myself, would I not be so grouchy in the morning if I drank coffee? And I wouldn't just go to coffee, I would go to matcha. I feel like, not that I've ever tried a matcha in my life, but I don't want to hit myself hard with coffee caffeine. I don't think I'm actually going to start drinking caffeine, but I've had lingering thoughts of would this solve the problem? Because I've heard people wake up in the morning and immediately be like, oh my god, yay, I get to drink coffee now. So I'm like, clearly this is the highlight of people's days, and would I be a nicer person if I woke up in the morning and did consume some caffeine? But I don't know. We're not going to test the theory yet. I want to keep going for as long as I can of not being a coffee drinker, and we'll see. So we're going to kick off today's episode with a little TMI talk. I changed the name. I was calling it Poo Talk before, but I've had guests come on and also had stories of my own that I want to tell that don't have to do with poo, but also have to do with some sort of weird bodily function thing like periods or puking, or simply is a story that is a bit too much information that you don't really need to know, but I'm going to share it anyway, just to normalize the fact that we are all weird, messy, imperfect human beings. And if you have a TMI story that you would like to share, I really want to share some of other people's on the show, so you can either write it out in written form and email it to humanpod@gmail.com, or even more fun, I was going to say funner, not a word, you could record it on your voice memos on your phone and email that to humanpod@gmail.com. And at the beginning of an episode, I will share your TMI story. Nothing is off limits. You can be completely anonymous, or you can use a name, or you can use a fake name, any of the above, and I just feel like it would be really fun to share some great stories and have a little laugh. And I'm so glad I do this to start off my episodes. Sometimes I think I'm weird, and sometimes I question myself and be like, I'm like, should I really be doing this? But my favorite episodes of podcasts are ones that make me laugh, that are really weird. And Glennon Doyle's podcast, We Can Do Hard Things, they had an episode, there's 3 of them who host it, and they had an episode where it was all about people's embarrassing stories, and they all sent in, their listeners all sent in embarrassing stories, and they just laughed for an hour straight and just laughed about these fucking weird ass human stories, and I loved it so much and just want to listen to podcasts like that. And for me as well, I want to listen to a when I turn on a podcast, I want to be eased in. I don't want it to be boring, but I also want to giggle and feel supported right away. And sometimes I don't get that if I'm turning on a podcast and then suddenly it's this is how you can fix your life. And I'm like, oh, that's a little too soon to jump into all the ways I need to be a better person. Can we just have a little giggle and remind me that you're weird just like I am? So that's what we do around here. So let's get into today's story. So I've been spending a lot of time at my cottage, which I will give a big life update as to why in a minute, but I love it here. It is very remote. You have to take a boat to get here. There's no road access to my cottage, and so it's also seasonal. We don't come here in the winter. We come here for as long as the lake is water and not ice. So I have been here by myself a little bit, and I've been taking a morning skinny dip, and I love it. This morning I was so deep in my dream, but then I kept trying to wake up and I didn't have to set an alarm today. And so I was just letting my body naturally wake up, but I was like immersed in whatever the fuck I was dreaming about. I woke up and literally felt like I was drunk or high or on drugs, and I didn't smoke anything yesterday. I didn't drink anything yesterday. I'm a sober queen as of the last 24 hours. And yet I just felt so groggy this morning, and before I even brushed my teeth or washed my face or did anything, I looked at the lake and was like, that's gonna cure me. We're gonna go to the lake, we're gonna jump in, and it'll force me to wake up, or else I will drown. I've swam my whole life. I won't drown. Knock on fucking wood. There's wood all around me. If you're watching this on YouTube, I can knock on all the wood. So I jump in the lake, and right now it's like end of July, early August, and so the temperature of the water is so warm, and I honestly want it to be a bit colder because I'm getting into like cold plunging and cold showering and stuff, and that really, really wakes me up. But it just feels so good. Now, TMI, skinny dipping, sure, but I was hanging out with the neighbors recently. We have 3 neighbors that are close-ish to us, but there's 2 neighbors that can actually like see our dock and see our rock and stuff. And so I was hanging out with one of my neighbors who live actually at the very end of the lake. We're at the end on one side, they're at the end of the lake on the other side, and they're like really at the end, which is so fucking cool and fun because people on the lake who are in like the main bay where it's like cottage, they're like, oh my god, it's so creepy down there. But like when you're used to it, it's not creepy. And when I'm here by myself, now that I've been hanging out with my neighbors more, I'm like, I don't feel alone because I know they're up across the lake or they're up down the lake, or like there's people around that I know are here. So if I'm in an emergency, I can just call them. And I don't feel like that in the city. In the city, I don't feel like I could just call my neighbors. Like I don't really know my neighbors in the city. So it's just this sense of community. We'll get into that more later. But I was hanging out with my neighbors down the lake. My parents and I went over and they were having a party. We consumed too much alcohol. They had a water jug full of sangria, 3 boxes of wine. It was a lot, but it was a really good time. And then the next day we all hung out, hungover, went to a spa nearby. It was so much fun. We like cured our hangover. And anyway, we got talking and we were talking about like, oh, we like going to each other's cottages because then we can also see like the view they have of our own cottage. And I'm like, how much can you see of us? And I say to them, like, we really can't see you at all. We might see like a figure of a body, but it's too far to actually see people clearly. Sometimes you can hear people's voices though, which is weird because sound travels on a lake. Anywho, so I was like, they were telling me how like they can't really see us at all, not even if they're on our dock. If we're on our dock, they can kind of see us if there's like a big rock in front of my cottage. They're like, yeah, if you're on the rock, we can kind of see you. And I'm like, okay, great. So you're telling me you don't see me during my morning skinny dip? And they're like, nope, absolutely not. And I'm like, perfect, because it's just like a really, I was going to say riveting, awakening. It's just a really nice way to start your day. It's really like jolts you awake and just makes you feel fucking human. It just, you're in your natural state. It's such a beautiful thing, except we have a snapping turtle near our dock and that scares me. So I like swish around the water before I jump in. And if you've ever watched Life with Derek on Family Channel, I think it was like the movie of Life with Derek, and the whole family went to some sort of like lodge or cabin or something, and I just got distracted because I'm looking out my window and there's definitely like a piece of something hanging from the roof. I'll report to maintenance. We joke and call my dad maintenance because my dad maintains the entire cottage. God bless him. Love him. So in the Life with Derek moment, he's like down on the dock and there's like an older woman who I feel like runs the lodge, might be his grandma, I don't know. She's swimming and he's talking to her, or they're fighting or something. And then at the very end, she totally like makes him feel weird and creeps him out. And she's like, okay, are we done now? Because you're interrupting my morning skinny dip. And she's in the water while they're talking. So she's been naked this whole time and he didn't know. And he's like, ew, oh my God, gross. And I'm like, I am that older woman who's skinny dipping in the morning. Like I'm doing it every morning and I love it so much. And just like being able to walk around freely in the nude is just an experience you can't compare to anything else. It is our human nature in its natural fucking form. I still feel like I'm asleep. like when I close my eyes or I let my eyes close, like, oh my God, why am I so fucking tired? I did work yesterday, so that's a good segue into our next life update. I worked an 8-hour shift yesterday and I got a job. And I got a job near my cottage. So I moved to my cottage. So that's what's going on. If you've been listening for a couple weeks, you know that I had a bit of a mental breakdown. I was taking 2 months off of anything but the podcast post-graduation, and it got really stressful, and I cried during an episode, and my makeup smeared everywhere. Good news, I got new makeup, so hopefully it will support me with my tears. And it was an interesting just circumstance of events getting this job, because it was like a couple weeks of me just like, what the fuck do I want to do? I knew I kind of wanted to work in some sort of wellness space, at a therapy clinic or a massage therapy clinic, or I don't know, something to do with my interests, but not something that would drain too much of my creative energy. And I got really frustrated about it. I was crying about it. I couldn't decide if I wanted to get a job in the city and just stay at home, or if I wanted to like follow in my brother's footsteps and come live at the cottage, because that's what he does. That's what he's been doing for the past year and past couple summers. And I was just like literally throwing fucking spaghetti at the wall to see what stuck. Like I went to a few different places in Toronto near my house and applied, and like old school to hand them my resume. And when I finished doing that, I just felt really discouraged and it just didn't feel right. And I also was like, I don't think anything is going to come of that. Like I just had this feeling of like, I don't think any of those places are going to call me. I don't think any of those places are actually hiring. Like that just felt like a dead end pretty much. So then I came up to the cottage for July long weekend, and I was hanging out with my mom, and we went camping with my grandparents, and I was just talking to her in the whole car ride about like, should I live at the cottage? Should I live at home? What are the pros? What are the cons? Like, do I want to like uproot my life and come somewhere else? But at the same time, I'm so comfortable up here and I just love I did not expect to love the nature so much. Holy fucking titties. I am just like so much calmer. I feel like my brain is just so much more relaxed, which this bitch needs. I am a bit of a hyper maniac, and so having just this like forest around me and water to swim in and stars to look at night, like, I am not a city girl anymore. I am just not. I live in the suburbs in Toronto now, but it's just like I'm slowly getting more and more remote, which like everything has its pros and cons. It's a real mission to get anywhere here. But it's just such a calming place to be. And so when I was talking to my mom trying to decide what to do, we were like, okay, well, there's a garden center nearby. Should I try and work at the garden center? Then I saw that the LCBO was hiring in town. Should I work at the LCBO? I did a whole application to it while we were trying to go party at the neighbors. And then there was a rush. And then my parents left me at the cottage. And then I cried. And then I booked a therapy appointment. And it was a whole thing. And this job that I'm now working at feels like it just was perfectly aligned for me. And leading up to getting this job that I now have, everyone was like, go be a server, go serve, you'll make so much money, you'll get tips, serve. And I have my smart serve, which in Ontario / maybe all of Canada is the certification you need to legally serve alcohol to people. And so I was like, I have my smart serve, but I just can't fucking picture myself in a restaurant in a loud, busy environment, serving people drinks and food, or being at a bar. Like, that's just not me. Especially if you've been listening, I've been like trying to work through my relationship with alcohol and have a bit more of a relationship where I'm not getting smashed all the time, getting hammered kind of thing. Like, I'm just leaning more into drinking less, even though I literally just said I got drunk with my neighbors. But it's a work in progress, guys. It's a work in progress, and we're gonna have grace with ourselves, okay? And so I just couldn't see myself serving, but like a part of it intrigued me. And my cousin was like, you could do brunch shifts, like you don't have to work till 11 or 12 or 3 in the morning. And I was just like, I don't want to just be a server because everyone tells me I'm gonna make good money. Like, what's my definition of good money? Like, what am I working towards? Is this gonna help me push towards where I'm trying to go? So funny, there was just all this stress and all these thoughts in this process, and now I have gotten a job where it's an outdoor spa, but it's also mixed with alcohol where we serve alcohol, and I work at the front desk and I work at the bar. I get to go between the two spots depending on the shifts, and make money in tips, but also get to be outside all the fucking time. I get to walk around this beautiful spa and just be around like the rushing water and the trees and the beautiful sky and like all this stuff. And it's just like, I was talking to someone about this recently. They were like, this is great. You're taking like little ingredients, little takeaways from each job you work at to understand what you like and what your ideal day would be. And I'm realizing more than ever before, I want to be on my feet. I want to be moving around a bit. I want to be outside if possible. I want to be connecting with the community in such a positive way. Before this, I have worked at a pharmacy and a physiotherapy clinic, and I did a few other jobs, but those are my customer service jobs. And nobody wants to go to the pharmacy. Nobody wants to go to a physiotherapist. People are sick. People are hurt. Like, I am now at a place where everybody going there is so fucking excited to be there, and it's so much fun, and everyone's just excited and is all good vibes and is chatting with you. And I feel, again, so much more connected to this cottage country community, and I felt like I did not have this community in Toronto. I also didn't feel like I had this community when I was in university, which is sad because that's a place that you should easily have community in. But I was a commuter and we had COVID and I didn't love the things I was taking, and so there's this shift of feeling less lonely actually, because I'm getting to chat with people who are excited and happy to be in nature, and I'm terrified of summer ending, but that's okay. I'm also really happy because this job is seasonal. It ends in the fall, and so I get to stay here for a bit longer after August, but then I'm not tied to this job forever, which is perfect because, again, I want to work on the podcast and be able to decide what's next. So all this long story to say, well, one, life update, and two, trust your instincts and put yourself out there, because I got this job because my mom and my brother and I went to the spa just to take a yoga class and to enjoy it because we've never been, and my mom's always wanted to go, and it's really close to our cottage. And I was like, it was amidst the whole questioning my life moments, and I was like, if I like the vibes of this place, I'm going to ask them if they're hiring, because I feel like me working at a spa makes so much sense. I fucking love a spa. I love a cold plunge. I love a sauna. I love all the things. I was just telling you about how I like to swim naked. It's a vibe. I'm into the wellness shit. And so we went there and I was like, this place is cool. And the yoga teacher and I literally talked about it while we were in the class, and she was helping me stretch deeply. And so everything just felt like it aligned. Excuse me, I just burped. And so I went up to the front desk and was like, hey, are you guys hiring? And she was like, oh my God, yeah, I'm working tomorrow and I don't even want to. Like, I'll give you the info of the manager, send your resume. And it just boom, 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 boom. Now I have a job. And I try to set my boundaries in terms of how much I want to work and all of the above. But if you're in a spot in your life where you're just like, I don't fucking know what's next. I don't know where I'm supposed to be going. I don't know what to do. Remember what your core values are. Remember where you feel your best self. Because there's a brewery close to the spa where I'm at, and I walked into it the other day and it was so loud. And I was like, see, if I was working here, I could not function. I get overstimulated. And so I'm so glad I'm working outside, especially in the best time of year in Ontario. So just know that like things will fall into place as they're meant to if you give up some of your own control and just put that trust in the universe or God or whatever you believe in, and just be like, please guide me to where I'm meant to be. It just like is a weight lifted off my shoulders. So now that I'm here, I am further away from some people in my community back in Toronto, from friends, from my boyfriend, and not really from my family though, because my brother lives up here, as I said, and my parents spend like 75% of their time in the summer at the cottage. They can work from up here. So there's a bit of a mix of like, I'm immersed in another community, but I am further away from some of my other people. And so I wanted to talk about that feeling of missing people, and this feeling of loneliness, and the importance of community, and also like, what do you do if you're codependent? What do you do if you feel like you are in a relationship or in a friendship where you're just always together, or you realize how much you talk all the time and you're trying to navigate life, maybe less together, let's close, you know? And there's a lot of things that are kind of starting to stack this for me. Not only am I further away from my hometown community, but my boyfriend's on a trip right now. And this actually happened, this experience that I'm having right now happened with us about a year ago. He went on another trip, and this also I'm going to explain the experience I'm having, but this has also happened to me when a really great friend of mine went to Europe for a couple months. And the feeling I'm describing is when someone that you're so close to, that you talk to all the time, that's like your person, it feels like, that you at least call once a day, or you're texting all the time, or you just see them really often, when they suddenly leave and they're immersed in their own life, in their own experience, in their own travels, and their days are busy, or there's a time difference, or you're just not talking a lot, it feels so weird, and it feels alarming in a way, and it's scary, and it can feel like, who am I? How the fuck did I become so dependent on this person? How did I not realize how close this person is to me? And also, like, what do I do if I don't have them anymore? And this really happened to me when my boyfriend went to India, back to where he's from. I'm so hot, I need to open a window. Hold on. And because of, one, the insane time difference, and two, the crazy travel day it took him to get there, and also the circumstances, like he was going back because someone had passed in his family, and it was in the winter time, which makes a big difference too. I was like unwell for 2 days, and it was horrifying. Him leaving was so terrifying to see how much I depended on him for just constant communication and contact, and it really reminded me of when I was single. And that's why this is also so important, to have time apart when you're in a relationship or you have a really close friendship and you're young. And I think the only way for a relationship to be really successful when you get together at such a young age, like my boyfriend and I met when we were 20, is to have time apart and also have yourself more established as an independent person. And so when we live, if him and I, because we don't, but if him and I constantly lived 15 minutes away from each other, which I was about to say we currently do, but we did, now I'm at the cottage, we would just become so much more engrossed in each other's lives. And the past 2 months, it has been like that. It's been like we see each other multiple times a week, maybe almost every day. We talk on the phone at least once a day, every single day. And so without realizing it, you become just so connected to someone and just so intertwined in your lives. And that can be actually really, it's beautiful, but it's also scary, because what would happen if we broke up? What would happen if your best friend moved across the world or something like that? Like, you're suddenly like, who the fuck am I without this person in my life? And you can feel just like a weird shell of a version of yourself trying to navigate the world. And I find it's like the quiet moments that are the hardest, the moments when you're not busy, when there's, a lull in between plans you have, or you're just decompressing at the end of the night and you're like, whoa, I would reach to my phone and go call this person or text this person, and I can't right now, or they're not going to respond right now, or I haven't heard from them all day, or I haven't heard from them in days. And it can just bring this like hollowness inside of you. And I think that's kind of how I felt yesterday morning when I wanted to record this episode and I couldn't, because I actually got to FaceTime him. But there's only so much connection you're going to feel when he's on the go on a really exciting family trip right now. And so it's just like quick talk about our lives and then, okay, love you, bye. And so you're not going to feel deeply connected to this person. And I think I just missed him even more after that. And I hate the feeling of missing people. I hate it because you can't do anything about it. It's not like, I don't know, sadness when you can like pinpoint why you're sad and work through it. It's like you miss them and they're not here and you can't see them right now, so you just have to deal. And I find that really challenging because it's just such a helpless feeling, I think. But it means you love someone so much, and it's even harder when someone's passed. But also, when you go through any type of breakup, missing someone is also weird in that situation because you miss them, but also know they're existing in the world. But then, when you break up with someone, friendship, relationship, whatever, and continue living your life, and you miss them, you miss an old version of them. You actually don't know everything about who they are now, which is weird. Sometimes you can miss their mannerisms, which I'm sure are the same or similar. But when you miss someone who you're no longer with or you don't know anymore, then that's a whole different bag of weirdness. But I really struggle with missing people, and I don't like to admit that I miss people, because I don't know, it feels like this like blanket statement of like, but I can't do anything about it. Like if I text my boyfriend, I'm like, I miss you so much. It's like, okay, yeah, I miss you and I can't see you, so I just have to move the fuck on and continue with my day. And yesterday morning before I went to work, I just felt this feeling of like mopiness and sadness and weirdness and loneliness. And I feel that at home too when I'm in Toronto and I spend a lot of time by myself. I think in the summer especially, I spend a lot of time by myself because my parents are all over the place and they're at the cottage, they're back home, they're whatever, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing, which is awesome because I really like to experience. It's kind of like experiencing what it would be like to live alone, but not full send, which, thank the Lord, I could not full send that. I could if I needed to and wanted to, but I don't want to. At least not right now. With these feelings of sadness and loneliness and missing someone, I think there's a balance between sitting in that and acknowledging that and really allowing yourself to have those moments of like, oh, like, whoa, this person's so big in my life, or I'm just sad without them. And it's such a sign of love and connection you share with this person. And there's this feeling too of like, I deeply miss this person who I feel like I can just be myself around with no guard up, no extra bullshit. It's like when I miss my mom, I'm like, I miss this person that I can just like be myself without even thinking around. And it makes me think about how important it is to cherish that time and have intentional time together when you are around. But while they're gone and while you're apart, or if they're gone forever, this is time for you, bitch. This is your time to shine, motherfucker. And the way you can shine is being like, who am I without this person or these people? Or what am I like if I can't go just talk to them all the time? What do I do? You got to find that in yourself. It's like what Rachel Hollis said once when she answered a question I asked on her hotline of like, what do you do when you are going through friendships changing and you're losing people? She's like, you can't just replace them with new people. That's not how the world works. You need to grieve and feel the experiences you're going through of like, I can't talk to this person, or this person isn't in my life, or they're never in my life, or they're not in there anymore, or they're gone and they're dead, and whoa. You can't just be like, okay, so there's a balance though, because I do like to fill my time with some things, but you can't just be like, okay, my boyfriend's gone, okay, I'm just gonna like see every person under the sun, because that's not gonna fully fill the void of missing your boyfriend, because he's still him and I love him, and the way I talk to other people, it's gonna always be slightly different than the way I can just be myself with him. But then at the same time, I think it's a really great opportunity to be like, okay, this person that I haven't talked to in a while that I love to call once in a while, once every quarter we call and we catch up, perfect time to talk to them. Or this thing that I've always wanted to do, I'm going to go focus on myself now and do it. And when my boyfriend went to India, like in November, I wrote down, which I don't even remember, but I wrote it down for an episode that I'm recording now. I like got into working out in different ways and tried out different workout things and went with friends that I hadn't gone with before. And so I was like bettering myself and working on myself and doing things to make myself feel really good. And that fills your own cup, and it reminds you that like you are capable of being alone, and you are okay even if you don't have this person who feels like your support lifeline, and you're not gonna die. It's okay. Well, we're all gonna die one day, but you're gonna live through this, hopefully, and it'll be fine. And that's so important when you're in a relationship, because you need to be your own person. The couples who are like, oh my God, we're together all the time, or like, oh my God, he can never get rid of me. Bitch, let him get rid of you. Let him miss you. My dad always says, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And it's true. When you have time away from the closest people in your life, you have that time to appreciate them, and you have that time to learn more about yourself. And being at the cottage completely by myself for the past couple days, if my boyfriend was always a phone call away, I think it would have been a really different experience. I was nervous to be here completely alone because it's very remote and it's very quiet at night, and it's just a very different like space than a suburb home. And without him being able to call all the time, I've had to embrace it and just show up for myself and put myself out there and hang out with neighbors who I hadn't really hung out much with before, and feel so much joy in that. And we need that community, and it makes me sad to think that I don't have this community as much in Toronto, but it's because there's this different vibe to lake life. And I was talking to another neighbor about this. Him and I were just chatting about how like lake life is cool because you just drop in on your neighbors, and that's just the culture of it. And living somewhere rural may be the same vibe as well, where it's like you don't need to like always pre-schedule a hangout date. It's so just like on the fly, listening to your intuition. We like heard a party going on down the lake, and that's why we went over and partied with them. And it's just like so spontaneous and so much more human of us, I think. Like, think about before we had phones, we weren't meant to always be like, okay, I'm gonna call, I'm gonna pre-arrange for 5 business days from now, we're gonna go to brunch at 10:30 a.m. and I'm gonna drive, blah, blah, blah. Because it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna be in the mood to go to brunch at 10:30 a.m. in 5 business days. But if right now I'm on the dock having a fucking brewski with my mom, and I'm like, I don't drink beer, but I'm like, oh my god, their party sounds so fun, I want to go hang out. Boom chicka boom, you can just go drop by. And it's funny because I have neighbors across the lake who I've grown up with, where 2 times now I've texted to try and be like, I'm gonna come over later, and then I don't feel like going, and so I don't go. And so it's way better when you can just like pop on by, and everyone's always so happy to see you, and they're like, hey, what's up? And I have a neighbor who came over the other day, and he's like, oh my god, I don't think I've ever stayed at your cottage this long because your dad always like kicks me out. But like, that's the beauty of it, is that you get comfortable with people just being like, okay, bye. Like, you're like, okay, I need to go make dinner now. And nobody like people understand the cues to not overstay their welcome. And then vice versa, we pop over at the neighbors, we say we're going for 20 minutes, and suddenly we're there 4 hours later eating dinner with them. This doesn't happen in the city. And it makes me so nervous for the winter, but so grateful that I always get to come home to this every summer. And so proud of myself for making this decision too, of like, I'm going to peace out of the city for a bit and see what it's like to spend some time here. And my other neighbor that I was just talking about that came over for longer than ever, he was like, you're just a dirty local now. Like, welcome to the club. And you just like become this like different version of yourself in a way. And that's what happens when you also don't have your closest people to you anymore, is you become this different version of yourself that's like, okay, bitch, it's time to be independent as fuck, and you can't be all mopey. And like, when I was having a whole problem of trying to figure out podcast things and episodes and what's coming up, I was like, okay, I can't just call my boyfriend and be like, help, I have podcast problems, help me figure it out, because he wasn't going to answer, which was so fucking great to be challenged in that way, to be like, okay, I can't talk to my boyfriend anymore, so I gotta just figure my own shit out and go hang out with myself and journal and try and solve my own problem. It challenged me to be like, okay, you're an independent motherfucking woman, it's time to figure your goddamn shit out. My favorite thing about life too is these slow moments that kind of feel like a movie, that kind of feel like you are the main character. Fuck, now I sound like a TikTok. But these moments where you really do feel like the world slows, and they're called moments of awe, where you're like, whoa, and you feel connected to yourself and your body and the world and nature. And this has been happening to me the past few days because there's so much less I can distract myself with. I can't just go on my phone, and there's only so many times I can call my mom, you know? And so I was here by myself, like I said, oh my god, I was here by myself. And I get kind of nervous when it's nighttime here, and I was like, no, the stars are always beautiful. I'm going to go outside, and I'm going to go and look at the stars. And there's this feeling of fulfillment, an accomplishment, I guess, but also just like pride and proudness of myself, of like, you can do this life, like, you can do this, like, you're okay. And I always say too that, like, I don't think it's healthy for a relationship when you feel like you can't live without the other person, because you 100% can. I was in a relationship where he clung on to me and he was like, I don't ever leave me. I don't want you to leave me. And that made me want to leave because someone was so dependent on me. I felt like I couldn't be my own person. And so I just love the challenge, and I hate it sometimes, but I also love and hate the challenge of being 100% alone and not being able to go lean on a boyfriend for support, because it shows me of what I'm capable of as a human and reminds me that I have my back 100% of the time. And I've been really honest and say this with my boyfriend that, like, of course I want to spend my life with you. I wouldn't be dating you if I didn't see us being together forever. But I know the reality of life and I know the reality of relationships, and I trust the universe in this process. And if for some reason we are meant to break up one day, which would break my heart and be devastating, but if that is the circumstance, I trust that, like, what's meant to be will be, and I know that I will live on and be okay without you, and I know you will be okay without me. Like, we love each other so much, yes, and we want to be together and we make each other better, but at the same time, for some reason, if we're meant to break up one day and we both feel that in our hearts, we will live. We will continue to exist in the world, and the world isn't going to end. And I think sometimes in relationships we feel like, oh my God, if this person were to leave me, I wouldn't be able to function. And it's like, yeah, maybe for a bit you wouldn't be able to function because we are habitual creatures. And so when there is a break in our habit that we're so used to, yeah, that's fucking weird. I am so used to texting and calling this person like at least once a day. We're really not big texters, which I'm happy about. We don't talk all the time via text. Like, I just don't get very fulfilled by that. Like, even with him being gone, like, I miss him, and so I'll be like, how's your day going? And then he'll tell me and I'll be like, okay, cool. Like, great for you. I love you. Happy, great. Woo! But it's because I'm just like, I don't hear your voice. I don't feel that connection through a text. And unless it's like a drunk, oh my God, I love you so much text. I think those are so cute. But where was I going with that? It's just, I am learning who I am without this person, and I don't think a young relationship, or maybe any relationship, is sustainable unless you create a foundation for who you are independently of this person, because we're not going to be tied to anyone forever, because someone will die, and that's the sad reality of life. But it challenges us to be our own person. And if you have time apart from your relationship or your friendship or whatever, and you can't exist, that's a problem, and you need to address it and take it in stride and know that we can't just only lean on one person for our whole existence, because that's not community and that's not fulfilling, and it's not going to bring us the most amount of safety and security. We need to go to different people for different things. And so if you're in a situation where you're missing someone, or just feel like, okay, also, next segue to finish this episode off, how do you do this when someone isn't on like a trip? You know what I mean? Or has suddenly moved 2 hours away. Be fucking intentional about your time together and apart. When I started dating Josh, it was really cool because I had bent anything that I wanted to do for myself for a guy. I would like do yoga on Tuesday nights, but if he wanted to go on a date on a Tuesday night, I'd be like, okay, sure, I'll skip yoga this week. And no, when I started dating Josh and I met him, I was like, no, if I have yoga on Tuesday nights, you can hang out with me after yoga's done. And he thought that was so hot, and I felt like I was really showing up for myself, which is so important. You need to be prioritizing your needs, and that's something that can help not only you thrive but also your relationship thrive. And so when he comes back, I'm so excited to see him and have some intentional time together. And what really helps create that time is to set that before you even go on the date, which is hard to do all the time, but I know that before we go on a date, if I'm like, okay, Jess, like, I want to be present, I want to ask him questions, I want to ask him about how his trip was, or I want to ask him about this or this, and I want to focus on this or that, or I want to feel this way, putting that intention out there of like, I want to feel this way is such a great way to have a beautiful connection and date and experience together, because you're not just walking in there seeing what happens. Because if you do that, you might do what I did recently, where you complained about and stressed about the same problem for a fucking 5-hour date, and then cried when he got to your house, and then bought him an apology pie because you spent the entire date just talking about something that could have been solved in one conversation. Okay, so we all make mistakes. So what I'm taking away from this is just making sure that I have time for myself to do the things that feel good for me, exercising in the ways that feel great, and also making sure our time together is exciting and intentional. And you don't need to go on a 7-hour date. You can have an incredible connecting moment of time by hanging out for 2 hours. So quality over quantity. We try not to have a scarcity mindset as well. We call each other out for that, of when it's like we're freaking out over, oh my God, we only have 2 days together, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, we have 2 days, so let's enjoy the 2 days that we have. So thank you so much for listening. My camera has overheated twice during this episode, and so is my body. So I'm going to go jump in the lake again and go on with my day. I appreciate you so much for listening. Please send in your TMI stories to humantohumanpod@gmail.com. We can keep it completely anonymous. I'm so freaking excited. I want to hear all the embarrassing stories that you have, or tell someone's story that you know is close to you, like my brother shit his pants once. I still need to tell that story. Make sure you keep up on Instagram and TikTok at humantohumanpod, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode, and send it to a friend if you feel like someone else could have a laugh who likes to talk about things that are probably too much information, but we all go through them. Love you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.